What happens when one of Hollywood's biggest legends walks onto a morning show set and refuses to play by the rules? What you're about to witness is one of the most intense moments in live television history. Kevin Costner, the man who's never been afraid to speak his mind, came face to face with Michael Strahan on Good Morning America. And what started as a routine interview quickly spiraled into something nobody saw coming. The tension was palpable. The exchanges were heated. And by the end, Costner delivered a shutdown so powerful that it left Strahan speechless and the entire studio in shock. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, telling me what you think about celebrities who refuse to back down. Now let's dive into what happened. The Good Morning America studio was buzzing with its usual morning energy. Michael Strahan sat behind the desk, his signature smile plastered across his face as the cameras prepared to go live. Kevin Costner was the guest of honor, there to promote his latest project, a Western series that had been generating massive buzz in the entertainment industry. The producers were excited. This was supposed to be a feel-good interview, the kind that gets clips shared across social media and keeps viewers engaged through the commercial breaks. As the segment began, Strahan leaned forward with his professional charm dialed up to maximum. "Kevin Costner, welcome back to Good Morning America. It's always a pleasure to have you here." Costner nodded, settling into his chair with the casual confidence of someone who had done thousands of interviews. "Thanks for having me, Michael." "So let's talk about this new series," Strahan continued, glancing at his notes. "You're returning to the Western genre, which obviously you have a legendary history with. But some critics are saying this feels like you're retreading old ground. What do you say to that?" There was a slight pause. Costner's expression shifted, just barely, but enough that anyone paying attention would notice. "Retreading old ground? That's an interesting way to frame it." Strahan smiled, seemingly unaware of the subtle change in temperature. "Well, you've done Dances with Wolves. You've done Open Range. Yellowstone became this massive phenomenon. Some people are wondering if you're just going back to the same well." Costner leaned back in his chair, his jaw tightening slightly. "Michael, let me ask you something. When you played football, did you only throw one kind of pass? Or did you adjust based on what the defense was giving you?" Strahan's smile faltered for just a second. "Well, I was a defensive end, so I didn't throw passes, but I see what you're getting at." "Do you?" Costner's tone wasn't aggressive, but it carried weight. "Because what you just said suggests that you think telling stories about the American West is somehow limiting or repetitive. These stories are about the foundation of this country, about struggle, survival, morality, and what people are willing to sacrifice for something bigger than themselves. So when you reduce that to retreading old ground, you're missing the entire point." The studio audience was quiet now. This wasn't the banter they expected. Strahan shifted in his seat, trying to regain control of the conversation. "I didn't mean to suggest that your work wasn't important, Kevin. I was just, asking the question that some people are asking." "Some people," Costner repeated, his eyes locked on Strahan. "Or the producers who wrote that question on your cards." Strahan laughed, but it was forced. "Come on now, we're just having a conversation here." "Are we?" Costner's voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath. "Because it seems like you're more interested in creating a headline than actually understanding what we're trying to accomplish with this series." "Kevin, that's not fair," Strahan said, his defensive instincts kicking in. "I've been nothing but respectful to you since you walked out here." "Respectful?" Costner's eyebrows raised. "Respectful would be doing your homework before you sit down to interview someone. Respectful would be understanding that just because something is set in the same era doesn't mean it's the same story. You want to talk about respect? Let's talk about how this industry works. Let's talk about how morning shows like this one churn through guests like products on an assembly line, asking surface-level questions designed to get a reaction rather than having an actual meaningful conversation." The tension in the studio was now impossible to ignore. Strahan's co-hosts, sitting off to the side, exchanged uncomfortable glances. The crew behind the cameras stood frozen, unsure whether to cut away or let this play out. This was live television, and there was no safety net. Strahan tried to smile through it, falling back on his media training. I think you might be reading a little too much into a simple question, Kevin. A simple question, Costner said, nodding slowly. You know what? You're right. It was simple. It was lazy. And frankly, Michael, I expected better from you. Excuse me? Strahan's smile was completely gone now. You heard me, Costner said, his voice steady and unwavering. You've been in this business long enough to know better. You've sat in that chair long enough to understand the difference between asking a question that generates engagement and asking a question that actually means something. But instead, you went for the cheap shot. You went for the angle that makes me look like I'm stuck in the past, hoping I'd get defensive so you could have your viral moment. Strahan shook his head, clearly frustrated. That's not what this is about. Then what is it about? Costner challenged. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're more concerned with being the personality than being the journalist. Strahan leaned forward, his voice taking on an edge that viewers rarely heard from him. Kevin, I've interviewed hundreds of people on this show. Presidents, athletes, actors, musicians. And I've always shown respect. But you're sitting here questioning my integrity on live television. I'm questioning your preparation, Costner corrected. There's a difference. And if you're feeling defensive about it, maybe that tells you something. I'm not defensive, Strahan shot back, though his body language suggested otherwise. I'm confused about why you're coming at me so hard over a standard interview question. Costner shook his head slowly. That's the problem right there, Michael. You think it's standard. You think it's acceptable to invite someone onto your show, to ask for their time, their energy, their willingness to be vulnerable in front of millions of people, and then hit them with questions that show you haven't even bothered to understand what they're doing. Do you know what this series is about? Do you know what makes it different from anything I've done before? Strahan opened his mouth, then closed it. The pause was telling. That's what I thought, Costner said quietly. You don't know, because you didn't ask. You didn't care to find out. You just saw Western, saw my name, and figured you could coast through this on charm and a teleprompter. That's not true, Strahan insisted. I know about the series. I know it's about a family torn apart by the Civil War, about brothers on opposite sides, about loyalty and betrayal. You read the press release, Costner said flatly. Congratulations. But did you watch any of it? Did you talk to anyone involved? Did you spend even 10 minutes trying to understand why this story matters? Why it's different? Why it needs to be told now? He paused, letting the questions hang in the air. Or did you just show up, expecting me to do all the heavy lifting while you nod and smile and pretend to care? The studio was dead silent now. Even the technical crew had stopped moving. This wasn't just uncomfortable television anymore. This was a masterclass in confrontation, and everyone watching knew they were witnessing something extraordinary. Strahan's jaw clenched. You know what, Kevin? Maybe you're right. Maybe I didn't do as much preparation as I should have. But that doesn't give you the right to come on this show and disrespect me in front of our audience. Disrespect? Costner's voice rose slightly, the first sign of real heat coming through. You want to talk about disrespect? Let me tell you what's disrespectful. What's disrespectful is treating art like it's disposable. What's disrespectful is reducing years of work, hundreds of people's passion and dedication, to a throwaway question designed to fill time between commercials. What's disrespectful is acting like you're doing me a favor by having me here when the truth is, you need content and I'm just the next warm body to fill your segment. That's not fair, Strahan protested, his voice rising to match Costner's energy. We invited you here because we wanted to celebrate your work. Did you? Costner challenged. Or did you invite me here because my name gets clicks, and your producers thought it would boost your ratings? Strahan stood up from his desk, a bold move that sent a ripple through the studio. You don't get to come onto my show and tell me what my intentions are. Costner remained seated, which somehow made him appear even more in control. Your show? That's interesting. I thought this was Good Morning America. I thought this was a platform that belonged to the network, to the viewers, to the tradition of broadcast journalism. But you're right, Michael. You've made it your show. You've made it about you. And that's exactly the problem. What's that supposed to mean? Strahan demanded. It means that somewhere along the line, you stopped being a host and started being a brand. Costner explained, his voice dropping back to that dangerous calm. You stopped asking questions because you wanted to know the answers, and started asking questions because you wanted to be part of the story. You wanted the clips, the sound bites, the moments that get shared on social media with your face in the thumbnail. And in the process, you forgot what this job is actually supposed to be about. Strahan pointed at Costner, his frustration boiling over. You don't know me. You don't know what I care about or what I stand for. You're right, Costner agreed. I don't know you, but I know what you just showed me. And what you showed me is someone who's more interested in being liked than being good at their job. That's enough, Strahan said sharply. I think we should move on. Move on to what? Costner asked. The next superficial question? The next attempt to get me to say something controversial so you can have your moment? No, Michael. We're not moving on. We're going to sit here and have the conversation you should have been prepared to have from the beginning. I don't think so, Strahan said, shaking his head. I don't have to sit here and take this. You're absolutely right, Costner said, standing up now. You don't have to sit here. You can walk away. You can cut to commercial. You can do whatever you need to do to protect your ego. But let me tell you something, and I want you to really hear this. The reason I'm being hard on you right now isn't because I don't like you. It's because I think you're better than this. I think you have the potential to be more than just another smiling face reading questions off a card. But you've gotten comfortable. You've gotten lazy. And nobody around you is willing to tell you the truth because you're too big, too popular, too safe to challenge. Strahan stared at him, speechless for a moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter, more measured. So you're challenging me? I'm holding up a mirror, Costner replied. What you do with what you see is up to you. The silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. The co-hosts looked like they wanted to intervene, but had no idea how. The producers in the control room were probably losing their minds, debating whether to cut away or let this play out to its conclusion. Finally, Strahan sat back down, his expression unreadable. Okay, let's do this your way. Tell me about the series. Tell me what I should have asked you. Costner studied Strahan for a long moment, as if deciding whether this shift was genuine or just another media-trained deflection. Then he sat back down, settling into his chair with deliberate slowness. All right, here's what you should have asked me. You should have asked me why, after spending years building Yellowstone into a cultural phenomenon, I chose to walk away from guaranteed success to start something completely new. You should have asked me what it feels like to bet everything on a story that goes against every trend in modern entertainment, to make something slow and thoughtful in a world that demands instant gratification. Strahan nodded, and this time there was something different in his eyes. Attention, real attention. So why did you do it? Because I'm tired of playing it safe, Costner said, his voice carrying a weight that commanded the room. I'm tired of seeing the same stories told the same way. I'm tired of watching talented people compromise their vision because some executive is worried about algorithms and focus groups. This series, this story about brothers divided by war, about families torn apart by ideology, about people trying to hold on to their humanity in the face of unimaginable violence, this matters. It matters because we're living through our own division right now. We're watching families fracture over politics, watching communities split over beliefs, watching people forget that the person they're arguing with is still a human being. That's heavy, Strahan said quietly. It should be, Costner replied. Art should be heavy. It should make you think. It should make you uncomfortable. It should hold up a mirror to society and force us to look at ourselves honestly. But you can't get to that depth. You can't explore those themes if your interview starts with asking whether I'm just repeating myself. Do you see the difference now? Strahan was silent for a moment, then nodded slowly. I do, and you're right. I should have dug deeper. It's not too late, Costner said. We're still here. The cameras are still rolling. So ask me the real questions. Strahan took a breath, and when he spoke again, there was no trace of his earlier defensiveness. Okay, in this series, you have two brothers who end up fighting on opposite sides of the Civil War. One believes he's fighting for freedom. The other believes he's defending his home and his way of life. Neither one is entirely wrong, neither one is entirely right. How do you navigate that moral complexity without falling into the trap of both-sidism? Costner's expression shifted. This was the question he'd been waiting for. That's exactly the challenge. And the answer is, you don't try to judge them. You don't try to tell the audience who to root for. You show their humanity. You show their doubt. You show the moments where they question everything they're fighting for. Because real people aren't heroes and villains. Real people are contradictions. They're capable of great love and great cruelty, sometimes in the same breath. The youngest brother in our story, he joins the Union Army because he believes slavery is wrong. And he's right. But he's also naive. He thinks war is going to be noble and clean, and he learns very quickly that it's neither. His older brother stays with the Confederacy because it's his home, because his friends are there, because leaving would mean abandoning everything he's ever known. Does that make him wrong? Yes. Does it make him evil? That's more complicated. So you're asking the audience to empathize with someone fighting for the Confederacy, Strahan said, not as an accusation but as an observation. I'm asking the audience to understand that people are products of their time and their circumstances, Costner clarified. Understanding isn't the same as condoning. You can recognize why someone made the choices they made without agreeing with those choices. That's what empathy is. And we've lost a lot of that. We've lost the ability to hold two contradictory thoughts in our heads at the same time. We want everything to be simple, everyone to be clearly good or clearly bad. But life isn't like that. History isn't like that. Strahan leaned forward, fully engaged now. There's a scene in the trailer where the two brothers meet on the battlefield. They recognize each other, and they both just freeze. Can you talk about that moment? That scene is the heart of the entire series, Costner said, and there was passion in his voice now. The kind that comes from talking about something you truly care about. These brothers haven't seen each other in 2 years. They've both changed. They've both killed people. They've both watched friends die. And suddenly, in the middle of this chaos, they're face to face. And all the ideology, all the righteousness, all the certainty they've been clinging to, it just evaporates. Because in that moment, they're not Union and Confederate. They're not enemies. They're brothers. And they realize that this war, this thing they've both committed to, it's cost them something they can never get back. Do they fight? Strahan asked. You'll have to watch to find out, Costner said with a slight smile. But I will tell you this. Whatever happens in that scene, it's not what you expect. And it stays with you long after it's over. Strahan nodded appreciatively. This is the conversation we should have been having from the beginning. Yes, it is, Costner agreed. And it took us getting into a fight to get here. What does that tell you? Strahan considered this, then let out a long breath. It tells me that conflict, real honest conflict, can lead to something better. If both people are willing to move past their defenses. Exactly, Costner said. That's the lesson. That's what the series is about. That's what this whole conversation has been about. We could have stayed on the surface, traded pleasantries, and you would have gotten your safe, forgettable interview. But instead, we challenged each other. We pushed back. We made each other uncomfortable. And now we're actually talking about something that matters. I appreciate you pushing me, Strahan said, and there was sincerity in his voice. Even if it was rough. It had to be rough, Costner replied. Because you're not going to grow from people telling you you're great. You're going to grow from people telling you the truth, even when it's hard to hear. Especially when it's hard to hear. Strahan smiled, and this time it wasn't his television smile. It was something real. You know, when you walked out here today, I thought this was going to be just another interview. Easy, smooth, done in 10 minutes. And instead you got your teeth kicked in, Costner said with a wry grin. Yeah, Strahan laughed, a genuine laugh. Yeah, I did. But I needed it. We all need it sometimes, Costner said. We all need someone to remind us that we can be better, that we should be better. That's what good art does. That's what good conversation does. It doesn't let you off the hook. It doesn't tell you what you want to hear. It tells you what you need to hear. Strahan extended his hand across the desk. Thank you, Kevin, seriously. Thank you for not letting me get away with being lazy. Costner shook his hand firmly. Thank you for being willing to actually engage once you got over yourself. The studio audience, which had been holding its collective breath for the past several minutes, burst into applause. It wasn't the polite, automatic applause of daytime television. It was real, energized, the kind of response that comes from witnessing something authentic. Strahan looked into the camera, his expression more focused than it had been at any point during the interview. Kevin Costner's new series premieres next week, and based on this conversation, I can tell you it's going to be something special. Not because it's easy or comfortable, but because it's willing to challenge us. And that's what we need more of. Costner nodded. That's all any of us can do. Tell the truth as we see it, and hope it resonates with people who are looking for something real. As the cameras cut away and the segment ended, viewers across the country sat stunned. This wasn't what anyone expected when they tuned in for their morning coffee and news. This was something else entirely. This was a reminder that live television, when it's allowed to be truly live, when people are allowed to be truly honest, can still surprise us, can still matter. What you just witnessed was a masterclass in not backing down, in demanding better from the people around you, and in turning conflict into something meaningful. Kevin Costner didn't shut down Michael Strahan out of ego or anger. He shut him down because he saw potential being wasted, talent being squandered, and he refused to participate in the charade. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And drop a comment below answering this question. Do you think Costner was too harsh on Strahan, or did Strahan need to hear exactly what Costner told him? I want to know what you think.